Okay, we did it. Week 29, personal episode. This week, I'm going to cover a few things, really just everything centered around, the journey and this whole entrepreneurial process that a lot of us are going through, this whole life process of being in that kind of 18 to 25 range, and kind of the different things we experience. I think a key, major key thing that we all kind of are going through during this phase of our life is change. And personally, I think that's been a big theme for me just recently. For those of you that don't know, if you haven't read the blog, I highly recommend you check it out. We have started launching the Weekly Profit blog on LinkedIn. This week is really what this episode is going to be about too. The title of the blog was, getting lost is important, staying there is a choice. And it's centered around this whole idea of change and how we can adapt to change, and how personally, how I've experienced it, and kind of how what my process is when I'm experiencing big changes, and also how my perspective has shifted. So I kind of read through the blog to start off this podcast. I think that I worded it pretty well, even though it was a direct journal entry, so we're just going to kind of start there. But, I'm 22. There's a flaming desire that almost feels like, now more than ever, an expectation to find yourself. Because of that, it can be tempting to rush the process. It can be tempting to skip the part where you ask yourself the right questions. It can be tempting to find some sort of identity that feels good at the time, and then look at your age and decide to be a slave to that identity for the next 5, 10, even 25 plus years. I think if you decide to go that route, as I've seen it, you'll end up choosing the pain of sadness and struggling to be someone that you're not. It's actually more difficult to keep that up than, just being your most authentic self. And you'll choose that pain of sadness and struggling to be someone that you're not over the pain of change, which is really, in my opinion, where you find out who you are. Like, through the major changes, through the major failures, that's where your true self's going to shine through. It's not keeping things the same all the time. How do you expect to evolve, if everything's the same all the time? I fell into that mode. I was just living in Fort Lauderdale for the last 4 years, going to school, working on the business. I noticed in this past 12 months, a lot of things started to seem repetitive. A lot of habits started to seem repetitive, but not a ton of progress to my standards was being made. And it took a lot of humility to realize that certain things needed to change. My habits needed to change. My perspective on what I saw as working, or what I felt was comfortable, and what I realized actually worked, needed to shift. So I noticed there's like a big difference in something you've done a long time and doing something the right way. You can do something for a long time and walk multiple steps in the wrong direction, and that does not get you anywhere. You have to drop the ego. You have to be comfortable realizing that something is not working after a certain period of time. To kind of bring a real life example to this, I've been working on building, really the beginning of, I'd say August of last year. I decided I was going to go all in with short form content. I was going to get back into social media marketing, and really try to scale that. Saw a real opportunity to produce content for people. I liked the idea of working with business owners each and every day, and I saw a real need for it. So I went all in with it. From August to really up until this last month, I was, the typical sending 100 DMs a day, trying to find new acquisition systems, trying to improve my sales process and also my product, finding the right partners to actually execute the service delivery for the short form content and for the social media management. And we did have some good months. I mean, definitely, I've seen 10K a month, flash across the screen, and I've experienced what it's like to lose 60 to 70% of that all at once. It comes from inexperience. It comes from not being in a place of, an established business owner for an extended period of time. I found myself I kept reminding myself, you've only been at this since August, just keep going, just keep sending the DMs, just keep, recruiting new clients. And then, I realized, maybe it's not that the product's bad, it's just that my heart's not 100% into learning to do it the right way. And as naive as that sounds, or as like you just said, you just admitted you weren't doing it the right way. It's not really what I'm saying. What I'm saying is there's certain steps and certain things you need to do to have a successful content agency, to have any successful business. That in that market, in that niche, I felt like I just realized I was really just doing it as something I saw as profitable. I didn't see it necessarily as something that shined through to me. I enjoyed the sale of it. I enjoyed selling it, and I enjoyed, reaching out and connecting with business owners to find out their needs, and but I didn't love the process of implementing it to ensure there were quality results there. I didn't love the process of having to hire and rehire sales reps. I didn't love the process of if an edit wasn't done right, going back in, and even though I just paid an editor, having to learn and redo it myself. I realized there was all these intangible things that were necessary that I wasn't really willing to do. So I really had to kind of realize that, and I had to shift my mindset from, okay, maybe I'm not the short form content agency guy. It's a pretty saturated market as is. It's really just something I picked up because it was easy, and I had this somewhat of a personal brand built through the podcast and through other things I was doing, to where I was like, okay, that's just like a plug and play. But it wasn't really me. So I think that's super important. I know I kind of just went off on a little tangent there. But in terms of, really what today was about, I've realized, if you want big blessings in your life, you have to make big changes. And so I was resisting the fact that I was going to have to start back pretty much over again. That I was going to have to look at where the business was at, find out what was working, and to kind of give some light on that. What was working is I knew how to acquire clients. I knew how to find the right fits for what I needed. I knew how to talk to them on the phone. I knew how to close them. In terms of the tangibles and managing a team and doing all of that is really where I lacked, and like portraying the ROI of what content produced to people. I didn't have a clear understanding of that, and I didn't have a will to go and educate myself on that. So that's, like I said, it's 100% on me, but something big needed to change if I was going to keep this business, this brand, this whole thing alive. So I did make this shift. I decided in January, so that's why I know, like, we officially kind of shut down the short form content stuff probably a month ago, but in January I kind of already sensed it. I kind of already was feeling that. So I got a job in high ticket sales and working for a client acquisition company. So they specialize in doing LinkedIn lead generation, and they were willing to teach me every single day on how to sell it, how to implement it, who it goes to, why it works. And I really fell in love with it. And I realized, Profit Jack's all about making people money. This is a product I can work with, and this is something I can put behind my personal brand that I wouldn't mind waking up and educating people about. I wouldn't mind, getting up, selling it, prospecting it. And I just committed to that from there. So I had retainers for short form content, and this was kind of one of the first big changes. Was I was also spending 3-4 hours a day using the product I was selling to other B2B business owners to acquire clients through LinkedIn. I was using it on LinkedIn. I was outreaching to about 100 new connections per day, holding about 100 different conversations roughly per day, and booking calls in my calendar for this new LinkedIn lead generation product. And I'm still doing it to this day. It's been a grind, but it was like one of those things where I woke up and I was like, okay, I really like this, and it's going to take some time to learn. High ticket sales is not something you just pick up, but I had the right support around me to get it done. I had 2 guys that I'd known for a pretty good long time that had been doing this since August, and simply giving them a call and being like, hey, I want to get more into high ticket sales. Would love to hear more about what you guys are doing, about the product, about what your plans are. And they brought me right in. So I'm very thankful for that. Since January, I've helped that company scale from 4 sales reps up to about 30 sales reps and a couple that I manage on my own, which has been super cool. They've kind of gone from like this $30,000 a month agency to pressing close to $100,000 a month agency, and I'm thankful to have been a big part of it. So I'm excited to see where that goes. But right, like, you know, Profit Jack, if you go all the way back to 2017, started in luxury sales, selling private stuff for people. So like cars, boats, SUVs, anything. You know, I was selling stuff for people on Facebook. And then, you know, we kind of hit a ceiling with that 3 or 4 years in. And I saw the opportunity in social media marketing. And I was like, okay, this is cool. I've got a little brand built here. You know, let's transition. And going through social media marketing for 6 to 8 months, noticed that probably, you know, it's not as sustainable as I thought. It's not something I'm super passionate about. As much as it's something I understand, it's not like the tangibles of being a CEO and running a major company was not something that I just enjoyed waking up and doing every single day, and training salespeople and training, like I talked about earlier, you know, training people on how to execute the proper service delivery. It was the relationships, the client success, the, you know, again, like helping these people understand why it was a good product that I enjoyed. And I loved the relationship building side of it, and I loved how it brought new clients into the business. So, you know, that's getting to know yourself, and then the universe kind of granting me this opportunity in client acquisition on LinkedIn, which is a platform I don't see a lot of people taking the most of. So I see an opportunity, and I've really been going all in with it for these last six or 7 months. So, you know, if you want big changes in your life, if you want big blessings in your life, expect to make big changes. You you can't be afraid to ask yourself the right questions. And I literally wrote that, and I say this to remind you that I've been there, to show you that part of me still resists change, even in the place I am now, you know, running a profitable agency in this space. I resist change all the time, even when I know it's all gonna be okay. So, you know, accept that the reason you aren't where you want to be is because you haven't experienced enough change. To go deeper on this, you know, changes are decisions lead to action leads to great success or failure leads to making different decisions, success leads to making more decisions, and a lot of times for the benefit of others. So, you know, interpret that however you want. The key theme there is that things are always going to change and evolve as you get better at your craft, as you keep experimenting. Life is so much about trial and error, especially at 22, that the more you resist change, the more you're just resisting your progress. So, you know, another kind of real life example, you know, I expect to make $10,000 per month consistently before the end of this year. Have I done it? Yes. Have I done it consistently enough to where I'm satisfied? No. You have those ups and downs, you just have the waves. 5 months in, there's been some changes, like I touched on earlier, mostly things I was comfortable with. Saw progress, but limited success. In the last 2 months, you know, I've experienced some of the biggest changes, even from flipping the whole business on its head, as far as what product we were going to market, to life changes. You know, I moved away from Fort Lauderdale, at least for the next 4 to 6 months, left people that I really appreciated and really loved for the last 4 years. I picked up a couple extra opportunities, just, you know, in terms of different, like, other income streams that are, yes, in the online space, and then also, you know, working an extra job on the weekends just so that I could invest in myself, invest in what I've learned through these last experiences, building the business, just using the capital to reinvest in the business. And now realizing, you know what, I can go back home for a couple months. I can work a job that doesn't take time out of my day-to-day business life, and I can use that money to expedite the progress of this business. It's very hard to just keep reinvesting your profits and trying to see exponential growth. I never went the traditional route. Okay, I wasn't the kid who like graduated, went and got a job, and waited 5 years to go after a dream. I have been working on my dreams since I was 17, and I've always just, whatever the business made, that's what I invested back in the business, and whatever I was able to survive off of, that's what I kept, and everything else just went back into making our systems better and trying to scale. Do I recommend it? Yes, if I'm being really honest. I mean, I do recommend it. I don't think you should go waste time at something you don't like to do. If you are going to go that route and you want to build that first 10K before you start your own company, make sure you're learning something that's going to relate to the business you're going to start. Don't go get a job for 5 years in whatever, like in science and tech, or working at some store or restaurant, and then just think you're magically going to know how to run a business with your new capital. It's not the case at all. If you are in that place where you want to save up some capital before you go and start your own agency, get into high ticket sales. Message me. I will hand you a job on the spot if you are qualified. I'd just like to kind of make a point of that. There's so many opportunities. There's so many companies looking for good salespeople, and sales is such a simple skill of having good conversation skills and understanding the product like the back of your hand. And like I've learned, if you can sell, you'll never go hungry, because everyone always needs salespeople. You can start as an appointment setter that's literally typing DMs to book people on a discovery or a closing call for a product. You don't have to get on the phone. You don't have to be some special closer to close the deal. There's no pressure there. You get paid for the volume that you put out and knowing how to approach the right people in the right way. So if you want to start your own business, I think there's no better way other than maybe working at a marketing firm and following that CEO around and looking at everything he does, than learning how to sell and getting into high ticket sales. So yeah, I mean, this whole next 4 to 6 months is really about investing in myself. I'm starting to see positive changes all around, and the whole goal is to be in a place where my whole potential can shine through. So it's kind of a shorter podcast today, but I think it was an important one, because I think people get to hear my story, and as much as I love having guests on here, I think it's important that I get more comfortable portraying exactly kind of who I am, and not so much, or not always just, oh, he's the guy that knows the guy. So